And if you would look and see if we're recording, if you can see that on your end. We are. I think we are. There's a little cloud. I think we are. Okay. Hi, everybody, and welcome. We're just going to sort of give everybody a few minutes to get here. I am Liz Simpson, and this is John Wilson. I just realized I have every pair of glasses I own on my head, so I'm going to sort that out. So yeah, if you're like me, that's the only way I can keep up with them. All right. I think today's going to be a fun webinar. John, have you heard how long North Carolina schools are going to stay online, or is there any feedback?
My wife is a teacher, a kindergarten teacher, and you know, in the state of North Carolina, the governor's done this shelter in place till the 29th of April. Mm-hmm. We suspect that they're not going to bring them back.
Ah, yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that's how it's going to go here in Wyoming as well. Hi, Denise. I'm so glad you've joined us. This is great. I'm going to bring your question to the crowd here and just as we get started. So stay tuned. We'll see what everybody has to offer. As soon as we give everybody a few minutes to get here. Denise joined me for the video game webinar on Tuesday, and she and her son have worked out some great structure around video games that's working for both of them. I'm really excited about that.
Rana has just asked, when is SOAR going to make a decision about summer camps? Well, we are moving forward very purposely towards hosting a summer camp season in an effort to make sure that we know you need us more than ever. And so, you know, so we are planning and very purposely moving towards a summer season. We recognize that there are continued factors that are at play here, but we very much are planning to run programs.
Would they start a little later, or the start time is not decided yet?
We're very likely we're going to be starting middle of June. Is the current thinking.
Yep. All right.
Rona, I'm happy to have a conversation with you. You know, we're going to continue to follow any guidelines that are there from the CDC. So, you know, the questions about size and social distancing will be answered based on, you know, what is best practice. I can tell you that the American Camping Association, as well as the North Carolina Youth Camp Associations, we are all looking at that together, determining what best practices are going to be and the most effective way for us to utilize, you know, both health standards as well as social distancing standards, as well as you know, precautionary standards prior to kids coming to camp.
Those are good questions, I'm sure. A lot of parents have the same concerns. All right, so it is, we've gone about 5 minutes. So I'm going to start with a few questions that I had prior to the webinar. So I always ask for questions ahead of time. That's beautiful. And Tracy asked a really great question. What is a realistic expectation for teens with ADHD for engaging and attending online classes? What works in terms of class time, duration, the type of instruction that a teacher provides, etc.? Lecture, writing on a whiteboard, Q&A, the number of hours per day of online classes that are realistic for teens with ADHD. Having a hard time getting her son to understand how difficult it is, son's school to understand how difficult it is for him to transition to online learning, and that their expectations of him and his performance should be modified. Okay, so the answer to that question is it depends. It depends on your child. It depends on their, their level of being able to attend to something. It depends on their preference and learning styles, and we'll talk about all of that as we go through the webinar. But the one thing that I really want to address in this is that you feel like the school is not responsive to your child's needs. If you are on an IEP, you can call the school and talk to your special educator, talk to the special education director, and ask for some modifications within the IEP so that then the teachers will make those modifications when serving your child. Okay, so if you feel like the school is sending things that are inappropriate for your child or expecting things that are beyond their current level, then you have always got that going back to the school and back to the IEP as an option. Okay. Otherwise, you know best what your son can do at this point in time. Okay. I have another question, and this was from Anna, and it was a part of a bigger question, but she is, and I'm gonna paraphrase for Anna. She was having, the school had the expectation that she and her son would sit down and do self-evaluations of the activities he was doing at home. Her son tends to have a difficult time with positive self-evaluations. He tends to be a little more negative, and so getting anything positive from him was difficult. She did a wonderful thing. She took pictures of him being successful in these activities so that when she sat down with him, she could show him how successful, some positive response from him. And she was still having difficulty with that. But I thought that was a great idea. That was super. So what I suggested was try working on the self-evaluation immediately after the activity. I think they were doing it more towards the end of the week after everything was completed. Try doing it after each activity. That was one suggestion. And the other suggestion was to go back to that teacher and say, is there an alternative way that we can get you this information? Because he was doing really well with his chores and his behaviors and his structure at home. But when they sat down to do the self-evaluation, it was creating some friction. So my suggestion was have him video call with the teacher and let her do the evaluation with him, so that then mom can keep that positive thing going that is happening around the house and being a member of the family. So that was an option. Always, kind of go back to the school if it's something that they're asking you to do that doesn't feel appropriate. And then Denise's question, which is a really good one, was, do you have any thoughts about some of the online programs that help with executive function? I've seen something called Brain Balance and Play Attention. I'm struggling with at-home learning and want to support Nick the best way possible. He has ADHD, LD, and autism. So I told her I know about Play Attention, and it is pretty good. Again, it's going to be individualized. If Nick responds to it, great. If not, try a different one. But I said that I would bring it to this group. And if you guys know of any online executive functioning app or program or anything like that in the chat box, then we'll share it out for everybody at the end. Okay? All right. So it looks like we're ready to get going. So I also wanted to mention last housekeeping thing. If you are here, or if you view 4 or more of our webinars, you will get this certificate, and this goes to Anna Delgado, sorry, and I'm going to put it in the mail today. She has been with us for 6 webinars. I don't know if she's here today because I haven't checked the participants, but I want you to know that this too can be yours if you are with us live or if you go back and watch one of our recorded webinars. So just email me a list of the webinars you've participated in and we will get your certificate to you. All right, so let's see what we can do about school at home. Oops, hold on. There we go. The certificate thing, so I'm going to whiz past that. All right, so introduction is that I spent probably 20 years as a special educator. I taught behavior disorder kids. I was an interpreter for the deaf for a little bit, but for the most part, I was a generalist. So I had kids with all sorts of disabilities, the majority of whom had attention deficit disorder. So this is my favorite population, I have to say. And then I taught teachers at the university level. So I know what the teachers know and I know what they're supposed to be sharing with you. And hopefully today I can help get that collaboration going a little bit better. And then after being at the university, I worked for parent groups as an advocate for kids, and I worked for alternative schools as an advisor. So here we go. Fun fact, more about the certificate. I love certificate. So here's what we're going to try to accomplish today. Ways to empower your child while they're doing school at home. I borrowed from John the learning diet, which is the play diet, but I've changed it to be the learning diet because I think it makes a lot of sense. I really like the way it's organized. We're going to talk about schedules and structure and celebration and evaluation. And then the last thing I want you to, the takeaway for today is I want you to make it fun. Fun's important. So a couple of caveats for this particular time with all of us being at home together. School is hard for your child due to just the way the traditional learning environment is constructed and the way your child is wired, okay? It makes it difficult for your child. And so we all know that. So when we say school, sort of a red flag buzzer goes off sometimes in our kids' heads and we're just, you know, so automatically we meet that with anxiety or, you know, sort of strong emotions. So your child is highly sensitive and creative and often doesn't get to express that side at school. Okay, so I'm going to show you some ways that they can express that side and it's still learning, okay? Your child may have varying levels of anxiety because of school. My daughter had headaches from 9 years old to probably 12 or 13. And it was every morning on the weekdays when it was time to go to school, okay? She had a high level of anxiety about school. Schools realize that this is a trying time for kids and families. So teachers, principals, administrators that I've talked to have said, we're doing our best to provide stuff for the kids, but we're not going to let them fail during this period of time. So I just don't want you to sweat the small stuff. It's not worth World War I, II, or III to do it. So we're going to work on learning how to collaborate with our kids. So this can be a fun experience for everybody, a fun learning experience. Okay. And that's the main thing. Things you never learned at the IEP is that your child is a wonderful, unique learner, but they're learning all the time. They're always learning. They're studying you, they're studying the environment, they just are all the time learning. So when we say learning disabled, that kind of bothers me because I know that they're learning all the time. They're just not learning exactly what you want them to learn in the same order. Okay, our child, your child has some wonderful strengths due to the way their brain is wired that school doesn't tap into, and your child can and will catch up with their peers. No worries, okay? And so this is a slide that we've used in other webinars, but I want to keep it in mind. Sometimes at school, our kids are considered distractible or oversensitive or perseverating or disorganized or daydreaming or procrastinating. You know the drill. But really, they have all these strengths. And I want you to utilize this terminology while they're at home, because they're going to be learning. It's going to be exciting. Help them build a more strength-based identity around learning while you've got them at home. That would be my suggestion. So we're going to empower them. We're going to collaborate with them. We're not going to dictate what they have to do. Now, are there some non-negotiables? There's some lines that can't be crossed? Absolutely. But there's not a whole lot. Mostly we can collaborate with them and negotiate and find a place that feels comfortable for everybody. Okay, we're going to help them build a balanced learning diet, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Praise effort towards a goal. Praise any effort. If they sit down, they get started, or they've got their workspace created, good job, this is wonderful, this is great, I love the way you're doing this, okay? And if one method isn't working, they're trying to memorize something, for example, that's very difficult. If it's not working, then we're going to switch it up and try another method to go about learning that, okay? So all kids, all people have learning preferences, okay? I have a friend that listens to podcasts and audiobooks all the time. She is an auditory learner. My middle daughter is very, very visual. She has whiteboards. I have literally 5 whiteboards from her room that are still stored. She won't let me give them away. When she went to college, everything was drawn out. It was mapped. It was gorgeous. That's how she learns. And then there's the kinesthetic learner. Okay, and those are a lot of our kids. We have to move while we learn. We have to move. So when I was in school, I was one of those, and it didn't work very well for me back in the day. I would get up, I would go to the bathroom because I could get up, I would go check on something, I would get up, I would switch my book out, I would get up. If you hear your teacher telling you this about your child, it's because they are probably a kinesthetic learner and they're not able to get out of their chair unless they make excuses. So what we want to do is try to hit all 3 of these learning styles when we're teaching or when we're learning. So what do I mean by reboot? So if your child is having trouble learning something one way, then I want you to switch it up. And again, the spelling word, if I can't memorize this list of spelling words, then do something different. And since kinesthetic is a way that we really enjoy learning, then how about a spelling word treasure hunt? Hide the individual spelling words around the house, and then they have to find them. And then when they find all the words, they have to write them in a sentence that leads to a treasure. So they have to make sense. And you've already done this ahead. You've sort of organized them and figured out a treasure. And so they can find that treasure. So the learning diet, there's 5 different ways that we learn. Cognitive learning, creative learning, social learning, physical learning, and free learning. And I'm going to talk about each one in turn, okay? Cognitively, socially, emotional, physically, creative, and kinesthetically. I don't know why I did that twice. So the learning diet. Cognitive learning, metacognitive strategies, executive function relies heavily on, and this is why our kids get stressed. Organizing materials, structuring time, making lists, taking notes, filling in the blanks, okay? Another part of cognitive learning is rote learning, just memorizing information. So we have flashcards and spelling bees and math facts and memorizing dates, people and events, and so forth. And then the other thing about school is that it's receptive learning, it's passive learning. So we're just listening. So our kinesthetic has nowhere to go. We're just receptacles, okay? So this is why school becomes a little anxiety ridden for our kids. Social learning, and many of our kids are social learners. I have a quick story to tell. I was the special education teacher at the high school, which in our small town was combined with the junior high. So I had a kid who was going into the 8th grade, and his teacher said, and now I had known this child since he was in the 3rd grade, and nobody had mentioned anything to me, and he wasn't on my radar. But in the 8th grade, they referred him for testing. And so I did what I always do. I go in and do an observation of the child in the learning environment. And what I learned about this kid, his name was Justin, I love him to death, is that we were in math, we were in like pre-algebra or something, and the teacher would say something, he sat in the back, the teacher would give an instruction, and he would write down whatever she wrote down on the board, and then she'd give a problem, and then he would look at his stuff and look at everybody else's heads down, kind of working, he's just looking around, and then when somebody's head pops up within his realm, he would say, hey, so I was thinking that maybe this went this way. What did you think? Well, what did you get? Well, how'd it go for you? Well, tell me what you did first, because I wasn't sure what to do first. So what did you do first? He was absolutely the best social learner, that he had made it all the way that far without hitting the radar. He just of his friend. And if that didn't work, if that wasn't available to do, he would ask the teacher questions, which made the teacher feel great that he was paying such good attention. But it was because he didn't understand. Or he hadn't read the assignment, because reading was really terribly hard for him. So anyway, when I did test him, he was way behind his peers, but he had a strong social learning venue. So just want to say, your kids may have a preference in how they learn. So cooperative and collaborative learning, observational and relational learning, okay? Creative learning. And we know that that's art and music, and we need to have more of it in the schools. Enough said about that. That is just, it goes without saying. But discovery and experiential learning. So getting kids out. SOAR does an incredible job with this at the Academy and at GAP. The kids go on expeditions to places that they have been studying about, that have things that they can see and smell and touch. When they get there, the teachers have outcomes that they'd like to see the kids, explore while they're there. It's really amazing. And this is a perfect opportunity for you to do that kind of thing at home, discovery and experiential learning. So go in the kitchen and read everything on the boxes and find out what chemicals we're eating or not eating, and do kitchen science or toothpick art or toothpick math, build a bridge with toothpicks. Planting a garden, if you're gonna do it anyway, plant some of the plants in the shade and some in the sun, and maybe see what happens. What's the difference there? Or write a play about a topic of interest, that they may have. So draw a picture, keep a visual journal, those kinds of things. So creative learning is very, very important. Physical learning for our kids, we've already said, the kinesthetic is critical. So dance, movement, sports, yoga, meditation, mindfulness. And when we're talking about physical learning, we're also talking about hygiene and self-care, because our bodies are changing, our physical bodies are changing. And so what do we need to know about that? That's really important. Also, I just want to go back to that one real quick. Somebody said, and this is a really good idea, and I can't remember who said this, but adding a music playlist to your study time or to your study area, so that you have music going in the background. That helps connect two parts of your brain, and that's a good idea for some kids. For some kids, it's too much stimulation, but something to think about. Free learning is what I call self-directed learning. And that means allowing the kids to pick a personal goal in any area, and you can use math, science, social studies, you know, whatever, in any area, and finding the resources to explore the goal to a predetermined end, okay? And this includes all of the above types of learning, but mostly it's about your child deciding on a topic, sitting down and deciding what they want to learn, how they're going to learn it, and how they'll know if they learned it, okay? Another quick example, one of my students, David, I had just read, for no apparent reason, A Brief History in Time by Stephen Hawkins. And when David came into my class, he said, I want to know about black holes. What do you know about black holes? And he was probably, I don't know, 12. What do you know about black holes? And I went, I just read A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawkins. Have you read it? And he said, no. And I said, yeah, it's all about it. And so we got him that book. And so for the first probably month of the school year, everything David did had something to do with black holes. We just put it all together around black holes. And once he trusted that we understood that he cared about black holes, we were able to move out from there. So just sort of a way to let them follow their passion, okay? So a balanced learning diet leads to motivated, happy, well-balanced child. I'm going to stop right here and ask if you have any questions, or if I'm going too fast or too slow, or how we're doing out there. And we've got the Q&A box, and for those of you who haven't joined us before, there is also a chat box. Raise your hand if everything's going great.
Currently, there are no questions.
Okay.
And we don't have any additional thoughts in the chat room.
Okay, and we got some raised hands. Everything's going good. They're with me. Perfect, guys. Okay, well, we'll keep it going. All right, happy, balanced kids. So let's start there. Here are some resources, and this was just from a quick sort of Google look at what I wanted to know. Things like, is the Smithsonian open, and can you go there online? And what about if I wanted to know about space and science? Is NASA still open? And the Library of Congress, what's happening there? And so anyway, I just went and found all of these resources, which are government-based. But I know that a lot of our kids have narrow interests. A lot of times they're about science, they're not always. Sometimes they're about, you know, video games or Pokemon or whatever. And sometimes they're about food or animals. It doesn't matter. But what I'm saying is there's lots of resources that your kids can tap into if they have one of those special interests. And if they have some downtime, and we're going to show you a schedule about how to schedule all this in. So if it's their free learning time during their school time, then these are some resources that you can use for them so that they can follow their passion. These are some college courses that are free. I've been talking to the GAP parents whose kids are fixing to go out into the real world once the real world opens up again, and to the Academy senior parents. And while everybody's at home at that level, so those are students who are from 18 to 22, they're accessing some of these free college courses. But I'll tell you, I looked at one on Coursera, and it was about social psychology. And I don't know if I can click this. I might try that, but then I'm not sure I can come back. Well, anyway, I'm not brave enough to click it. Okay, but anyway, you can go to Coursera and you can see all the courses, and Stanford Online, Oxford, Harvard Online. My daughter, who is 24, just going to turn 25 next week, and looking for a job, is taking 3 online Harvard courses while she's waiting all of this out. And she said they're not that hard. And so I think it would be a good idea for you to give them a look, see if you think your kids can handle them or whatever. So just something to think about. Okay, so what are the strategies that we need to do? First of all, while your child is at home, we need to create a space where they can work, a workstation that is specific to learning. It would be good if it's a place where you can sort of monitor them and they can access you. Okay, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And give them everything that they need to organize this space in a way that will make it useful, because at school, the teachers have helped them organize their space there, right? There's lockers, there's places for your folder, there's places to turn in homework, whatever. So help them in any way. And if you want to, Google homework stations and do images, and there's lots and lots of pictures of homework stations. So the first thing is place. The second thing is work with what you have. And I alluded to this at the beginning of the webinar. Some schools are more prepared for the transition to online than others. So tap into the special education teacher for ideas if your child is on an IEP. If they're not on an IEP, contact the individual teachers. Okay, or if they're on a 504, contact the individual teachers. And be sure your child is in contact with his or her teacher. So there needs to be that line. You don't want to get in the middle of that if at all possible. If your child is emailing their teacher, great, they can copy you. But otherwise, the more in control they are of that relationship, that would be great. So, giving the power to your child, have them email the teacher and copy you. Have your child access the learning standards for their grade. And the reason why this is important is because the teachers start with those learning standards. Okay, so every state has state standards and they're broken out by grade. So the teachers start there and then they build their lessons. So if your child is going to do some creative, discovery, exploratory, experiential learning because they need to fill in some learning time, you want to have access to those learning standards, and you'd be surprised how broad they are. So your kids can get very creative with this. I would love it if the teachers would start every year with, hey, here's the standards we have to meet this year. What do you think we ought to do to meet these standards? And get some input from the kids. It would help a lot with motivation, but I said it to them. Okay. Have your child discuss options for learning the material with their teacher. So if your child comes up with some creative ideas for how to do the work, have them present that to the teacher, because the child knows how they learn best. It's okay to ask the teacher if that would work. Have your child identify what is for extra credit and what is not, because a lot of things going out, at least in the beginning, were for extra credit. So the child is sitting there with all this stuff going, I don't know where to start. I don't know what's more important than the other thing. So they need to have that clarified with their teacher. Have your child create their own assignments, So today you're going to, memorize this or paint that or look up this or whatever. Have them create sort of their own assignments. And use assistive technology as much as possible. And of course, assistive technology is books on tape, videos, how to do things on YouTube, dictation software. You can dictate into Word, I believe. You can certainly have Word read things back to you. And Khan Academy is a great tutorial place to go. I'm sure we're all pretty aware of that. If anybody has any other suggestions for things that to assist their child, go ahead and put that in the chat box. Here's a daily schedule. I'm going to show you a couple of them, but this is the one that I have sort of put together. You decide on the times. That's up for you and your child to decide on, because I don't, that's unique to each and every family. So wake up time, clean your room, breakfast, chores. And then I would say first thing in the morning, depending on, again, on the biorhythms of your child, do your cognitive learning block. So if there's something from school that requires writing or reading or, memorizing or organizing, do that when their brain is the sharpest, when they're wide awake, okay? And then maybe do a creative learning block, so something that they have some control over. And then maybe a physical learning block, right? Like doing some calisthenics or some yoga on YouTube or whatever. Or maybe a bike ride around the corner, which would be so refreshing and lovely. And then lunch and cleanup. Then a social learning block after lunch, again, back to your own child's rhythms, but a social learning block where they can call their friends and maybe have a little study group together. What are you reading? What have you gotten done? What do you need to get done? How do you help me with this? All of that. And then if they're up for it, another cognitive learning block, once they've gotten that information from their study group, go back and revisit the homework assignments and so forth. And then at the end, a free learning block, okay? And you can modify this however you want to. And then some free time, just some downtime, and then off to dinner and the evening activities. This is from understood.org, a great resource for parents. And it's sort of an hourly schedule. It's pretty general. Check your assignments, do some of your work, take a movement break, wash your hands, eat lunch, call a classmate, complete your work, wash your hands, eat a snack. So sort of the same thing. And we're going to drill down a little bit how we can make these things a little bit more manageable for our kids. Okay. This is another one from understood.org. And if it's hard to see and read, I think you can go directly to them for the download. These were all free downloads. So I'm giving them credit. Body double, you want to be in close enough proximity for your child to ask you a question if they're needed. You need to wait for permission to coach. What that means is sometimes we will go walk by, our kid and look down, and to us it looks like they're not doing anything, or it might look like they're stuck, or it might look like they're even going in the wrong direction. You need to wait until they ask for your help, okay? So a better way than to say at that point, oh, honey, what are you doing there? That I just don't know. That doesn't look, don't do that. A better question would be, how is this going for you? Are you feeling pretty good about what you're doing? Is everything going okay? I'm in the next room if you need me. Please let me know if you have any questions, okay? And don't.
I would add a moment to that. The body double is a wonderful construct that I learned from some ADHD coaches, and simply being in the room makes a world of difference. And so, we recognize that that this is challenging. So if the workstation that you set up is someplace nearby where you're in a room together, simply just being in the room together can make all the difference in the world than if they are in a kind of a private, sort of excluded, their own kind of space. You'll find, if you think about it, that has been true in projects. Very often we don't want to work alone, and simply by having somebody else in the garage with you while you're trying to clean out the garage makes a world of difference, just because you're not by yourself. And so the body double doesn't require anything of you, just in and of itself, except that you're in the room, that you're present.
Mm-hmm. Or close by. I have a funny story. My husband likes for me to come out to the garage with him while he's working. I don't do anything. I'm there to work. I get all dressed up. I got my gloves on. I'm ready to go. He's a woodworker. I'm ready to go. He always goes, stand by, just stand by, just stand by. That's all I do. And then he'll show me something. Yeah, that's beautiful. And then stand by. I'm going to need you in a minute. But he just likes having company out there. So really good point. All right. So part to whole, if your child does seem overwhelmed, help them break the task into smaller chunks. So a lot of times your child might come to you and say, I just don't know what to do here or where to start or what's happening. I just don't know. So then you help them break it down. What is step one? Can we find that? What's step two? Where's that? What's step three? And then include a time limit. For example, once you've discovered the steps, once you've broken everything down, then say, let's have 10 minutes and do step one and two, and then I'll come back. Okay, let's try that for 10 minutes and then I'll come back, see if that works. And a lot of times that will help get them over the hump of being completely overwhelmed with a project that's too big and unwieldy. Okay. So a way to break it down into those steps, questions. So when we're collaborating, we're asking questions. What do you know, how can I help you? And so let's say we're breaking down a big project. Do you have the materials you need in front of you? No, probably not. They're going to run go get that. Do you have your instructions? Yes, it's in this notebook somewhere. Have you read the instructions? Not yet, but I know this is a big deal. What's the first question? And they'll find it. How many parts are there in the first question? So a lot of times teachers, and this is not a good thing, a lot of times teachers will put a homework assignment. It has so many parts in there. So you have to really help your child break it down. How many parts are in the first question? Break it down, okay? And what's the first thing it's asking you to do? So usually the first thing it's asking you to do is read 15 pages of chapter whatever, write down the main points, go to the back and answer the questions, you know, da-da. So that's all of those things are in one question, okay? The first question, okay? Study groups with friends. So they can visit with their friends during study time on a video chat. And if you're in close proximity, to be sure that they stay on task 90% of the time, or let's say 80% of the time, because they are going to get a little bit off task. And that's easy to do, to set up with either a Zoom free account. If you're all on Apple, you can do FaceTime or a Google Hangout account. And so then everybody can be there. As a parent, when my kids were younger, if they were video chatting with anybody, I always checked in visually and said, hey, to the friends, so that I was sure I knew everybody and they were sure that they knew I was around, you know, because I think that's important. Create a place, we talked about that to start with, and evaluation. Save some time at the end of the day to have your child share with you what they have learned, okay? So if they did do some free learning, let them share that with you. If they did their homework, let them share that with you. So, I mean, really set aside some time after dinner or after the evening meeting, if you're having evening meetings, for them to just sort of shine and share with you what they've done, okay? John?
Oh, no, you know, I just wanted to make a point once you move to the end of this this slide.
Okay. I want you to value their efforts, you know, so they're going to be trying. Once you get them set up in their school office, they're going to be working hard to get this done. But it'll be at their own pace and they'll be distracted occasionally. So value their efforts. Ask questions about the topic that they're sharing, that they learned about, and the process. How did you learn it? How did that go for you? And celebrate their success. High five. We've talked about points. We've talked about magic points. Whatever it is you're doing in your family to show that you value their efforts. Okay.
So the point that I wanted to make is that your relationship with your child preempts all of this. And so, you know, recognize that if you find that, you know, that your efforts to nurture and encourage completion of school activities begins to deeply erode the relationship that you're having with your child, Nothing is more important than that. The strategies that Liz has developed here and is encouraging you to use are there to help augment and to provide support as you try and create that structure. But always keep in mind that relationship trumps all. We are finding in our household constant ways to do school, and sometimes school is not in the traditional way. And so, if you don't know how to do something, look at a YouTube video. There's lots of great stuff out there. Liz has mentioned Khan Academy. So if your major takeaways, I hope, from this workshop are: love them, create a good space for them, be present, stay involved and engaged, but ultimately make sure that your relationship with them is the most important aspect of everything that you're doing.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. Thank you. That was absolutely perfect.
Okay, we have one question from Kelly. Thinking ahead, do you all have plans to create or offer a new kind of gap year program for high school seniors who are not planning to take a gap year next year, but now might do so given that colleges are not likely to have in-person school next fall? Well, I'm not entirely sure that colleges aren't going to have school, but that being said, we do have a gap year program, and we are looking at ways to make sure that we can continue to provide support in many given capacities. We've learned a lot as we have had to transition this last year into a distance learning model. And I actually had a conversation today about how we might create continued opportunities for students that have graduated in a way that provides them with guidance and support. So stay tuned. But in the meantime, I would encourage you to check out our gap year website, and I will put that in the chat. And so there you go.
Good. Yeah, the gap year is doing really well. Everybody in the academy as well, switching to online. I'm really proud of our whole program. Yeah, we've done great. These are crazy times. I just want to thank everybody. Are there any questions or concerns or particular battles that you're fighting at home, or have any question about? If this was helpful, this information was helpful, give us a thumbs up. And if not, I don't even know if you can give me a thumbs down, but call me, text me, email me if it was not helpful. All right.
Thanks again, folks.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm going to stop my share. And if there's no more questions, you can always reach me at liz@soarnc.org. Thank you again. Have a good one.